Alright, so new day. I'm gonna try to play another classical game of 15 plus 15. Hopefully we'll be able to find an opponent that matches our rating this time. But regardless, I hope even more that I can just play solidly and well. Alright, so this is good. Good start. I want to play flexibly. So what could be more flexible than knight f3? Knight f knight f6, and I'm just not gonna put a pawn in the center just yet. I kind of want to see how black imagines this game is gonna go. So we see d5, bishop g2, making a nice safe space for my king. Castles. I mean, usually you'll see black follow up with a move like bishop g7 right after g6, but maybe black is thinking about whether or not they should start with a move like c5, which they do. So I have a few options here. The option I'm probably not going to consider too strongly is maybe the double fianchetto. Just because, although I said I wanted to play flexibly, I think at this point, I really want to start figuring out how I want to handle the center here. And the two main ways, or three main ways that I can think of handling the center is one, you often see this structure in what they call the King's Indian attack. Pawn goes to d3, knight goes to d2, and you play e4. So okay, that's one way of playing. Not sure that that's entirely the way I want to play, because typically in those structures you might try to set up some sort of kingside attack, which isn't going to be as successful against this maybe more solid structure. And then the alternative is to play after here, maybe do some sort of queenside expansion, but black already has a bishop set here. So kind of the same problem. I'm sure it's fine, it's just not what I'm looking for in the game. I can play d4 and open the center that way. We'll get some sort of maybe reversed Grunfeld. And then the option that actually I kind of want to go for is this c4. One of the reasons why I want to go for it is that if they push d4, my bishop gets opened, and actually their bishop gets blocked. So we're kind of achieving some sort of reversed Benko gambit, Volga gambit. And I guess, although I said I wanted to play flexibly, I guess I also wanted to play aggressively. Taking, though, is a bit unusual. So here I could recoup the pawn pretty quickly with queen here. Check, pick up the pawn. I'm not sure I like my queen on this square. I think I can also just as easily play knight a3, and I don't really see how he defends the pawn per se. So I like that. I'm going to bring my knight to c4. If bishop here, I can start thinking about antagonizing the bishop. I can also just play queen c2. So he plays it without much hesitation. So if I antagonize the bishop with knight to g5, we're going to see bishop to d5. Save the bishop and also protect against this attack. And then what? Then perhaps I play e4 and then take here, with the problem that he would then maybe kick my knight away, and then I've lost protection of this important pawn. So I'm not sure about that. If I were to take here, bishop takes and try to trick him, get the bishop, I think he has b5. So it appears that my best bet might just be to play queen c2 and pick up the pawn and antagonize this bishop later. Is what I'm thinking. So yeah, so knight g5. So let's just go queen c2. Knight here. If I take and he attacks me, I think I can give check. I'm not sure I played this right. In fact, I have this strong suspicion that I didn't play this right. So I need to figure out what to do about this problem piece. Do we play here and here, or do we play maybe d3 and then bring our bishop out somewhere? So he's preventing this move from happening. However, that's a slow move. Now I have the option now of bringing my bishop to oppose his bishop, but this time he doesn't really have that strong center to maybe shut me down or maybe prevent me from being able to do something afterwards. So I took care of the most important thing first, and then I can think about fixing this bishop. So got to briefly think about what do I do after I fix the bishop. And maybe, actually, do I have the opportunity to play knight e5? A lot of pressure on this piece. It's interesting because I'll have my queen coming out as well. So knight e5 there's not a great way to defend the piece. He might have to maybe counterattack, but I can just drop back, protect this pawn, and then kick the knight away. I kind of like this idea. So I'm expecting knight to d4. I can't play check because I think there's b5, unfortunately. However, I think I can even consider playing maybe queen to d3. So I think queen d1 is still best. I don't want there to be tactics associated with if we're both attacking each other's knight, and if my queen's on d3, then maybe he takes me first. So my idea here was going to be to play e3. And I don't think it's a bad idea. Knight will probably come to f5. This seems pretty precarious. Oh, okay. Well, knight b5 is possible. And I definitely want to have tactics. Okay, so like the problem with knight here is that I have queen a5. Maybe. Then he forks me. Sorry, queen a4, b5. Take pawn, take knight. Bishop check. Let's say knight block, knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, queen takes rook. Is that working? It might actually be working. Additionally, I think if b5 I have bishop check and then I pick up the pawn. So actually, I think this is pretty good. So this is a consequence of him playing, a slow move like this and maybe holding on to the pawn when he didn't have to. So b5, I think I have both bishop to c6 immediately and queen takes here. If queen takes, maybe there's no rook a8 because of my bishop. So I think just bishop to c6. Bishop c6, and then if bishop, I just take because I'm threatening mate with a double check. So this is getting to be very awkward for him. So knight there. And then I think I have queen here. With the same tactic as before, I just kind of switched the move order. Because I win the rook if his queen gets distracted. So I don't need to trade queens. I can win more material. So here, blocks. Maybe take all the pawns. So I don't know which pawn I should take first. I think this one looks harder to defend. No, it doesn't, because the knight. So I'll take this one, and if queen defends the pawn, then I can play d4 because there'd be this pin down the file. And if this pawn is gone, I just play d4 to shut down this diagonal, and then I just start pushing. I mean, I could start pushing right now. Right, so he goes here, defending the pawn, clearly. But maybe I don't want him to castle. So here are my options. If I go queen c3, suddenly it's very hard for him to deal with this threat on the rook. His rook might have to move somewhere unideal, and his king will be perhaps just stuck in the center. So, and then my other idea, of course, is just to push the pawn. So let's do some quick calculation. a4, let's say bishop e7, a5, castles, a6. He seems to be in time to maybe blockade the pawn. So let's just make things a bit awkward for him. If he blocks it, then I just win this pawn, and then things are looking pretty good. Especially since he'd be unable to castle in that moment as well. Notice that he's barely used any time. I know that we get the plus 15 seconds, but you know, it's a 15 plus 15. If we're on move 20 and you've used basically 1 minute, not excluding the increment, and you're losing, and I believe black is losing here, something's not right. So I'm gonna start pushing. This rook is it's not easy for him to play f6 at the moment. I mean, actually, he'll just play bishop e7 to play f6 and maybe defend laterally. But the queen's in front. So like bishop e7 here, f6 here. His queen has to block. It's not what he wanted. And then maybe I just play d4. So now this seems a bit too slow. I totally get the idea that black wants to counterattack here. But even if here I can keep things blocked. So I'm gonna keep pushing. And honestly, I think I can just ignore it. Here, okay, so we're thinking about sacrifices. I can very easily set up a lateral defense. If I end up taking my piece can go here. So I can win this pawn now. Which I think I should do. So now I'd like to maybe put my queen here. And there's only one square that I can do that from, which is here. So maybe we'll see f6. Also, sorry if you keep hearing these dings, the messages. I guess learning for the future, I'll have to turn my notifications off on my computer. So he does a block laterally, which is expected. So I think I need to start being a bit more wary of a4. Sorry, h4. Getting all the squares mixed up. Because now he has this these sacrifice ideas. And my pieces still aren't super active. Okay, so maybe it's just time for this. Let's trade queens, and then I never worry about checkmate, and then the win should be pretty trivial. So, trading queens. I think it's about time I got my bishop active and my other rook involved. And this is no problem. This is surprising to me that he's trying to get his king involved. So maybe he wants to start bringing his king into some of these annoying squares. So maybe it's time for me just to cover this square. If he comes in, I bring my king up. Or actually just here, right? Check. King comes back, check. I win the knight. I mean, okay, he'll get my pawn, but whatever. And that's game. So a really straightforward game. Let me analyze. Let me bring it to the study. So here we are. So knight f3, knight f6, g3, d5, bishop g2, g6, so on and so forth. Yeah, most people would play bishop g7 from this move order, and just playing g6. Of course, the logical. Whoops! Somehow I messed with the board there. So most people are keen on just following through. c5, of course, is not a bad move. This is a position that's achievable from different move orders. Imagine he'd started with d5, c5, and just played g6. So still plenty of games here. And actually, yeah, it looks like c4 is the most popular move. It makes the most sense to me. Of the positions you can play, I mean, d4, of course, is very strong as well. Which also makes, I shouldn't say that c4 makes the most sense. And then, of course, d3, as I mentioned. Also scoring the worst for white is d3. And I think that's in part because two of the main, let's say, structural plans in white's assumed structure aren't as effective with both the kingside attack and maybe the queenside push because of the way that black has oriented their kingside and bishop. So that's one thing to keep in mind. c3 looks like it just plays and we get some sort of reversed Grunfeld again with c6 and d5 being the other form, the normal Grunfeld form. So I played c4. It seems like most popular is bishop g7. I thought most popular would be d4, but not everyone's keen on these Benko structures. Because after d4, I would have definitely played b4, cb4, a3, and then played from there. I don't actually have a great idea of what I'm doing in these positions, but I would have played it just to see what happens. And there's something to be said about going for the Benko after black has kind of committed their bishop to this square, because a lot of these strong anti-Benko openings, at least from the white perspective, involve maybe playing the pawn up and having the bishop function on this square, protect the square. As for the Benko accepted. I think the Benko accepted is still kind of okay, at least at the level that I'm playing at here. It's very acceptable in the normal Benko accepted. So the reverse Benko accepted, I think we could have figured something out. So knight a3. Oh, it looks like there's actually a top level game here, Wesley. So versus Anand. And then yeah, I mentioned this queen coming to a4. I should also throw on the computer analysis because I'm curious about the accuracy of my moves. And I mentioned that a few moves, I thought knight a3 seemed reasonable, but I mentioned a few moves later I was actually not so keen on my position, so maybe this is a good moment to step back and kind of think, oh, maybe queen a4, just pick up the pawn that way. Knight can come to c3. This is better, because taking back with the knight like this, you have to be certain that the knight belongs more in c4, and it's not so clear if it belongs more on c4 or c3. But my reasoning was that, c4 is a little more in the center, and I didn't want to expose my queen. But yeah, after bishop e6, I suppose I had queen a4 here as well, but I have to start worrying about forks in the future. I'd have to be mindful of that. I calculated that knight g5 probably wasn't in my best interest. Queen c2, knight c6, knight takes c4. Yeah, h6 was a bit strange to me. And as I say that, the computer does say that it's kind of a mistake. Apparently I played a pretty accurate game. 1 in accuracy. How about that? Still, this is... If I could do this every game, I'd be a much stronger player. So let's see where my inaccuracy was. Oh, queen c2. Yeah, so queen a4 was best. Fair enough. Probably knight c6 and then just recapture. h6. Yeah, so I liked seeing this opportunity. I realized that, black has spent a couple moves doing nothing. And, I'm castled and developed, and this is just awkward pressure. So knight d4, queen d1. You've got to do something about this pawn. The knight can't come back, so I take the knight off of this diagonal. And I'm sure queen takes a7 first was also fine. In fact, I'm going to check that with the engine here. Yeah, also fine. It pretty much transposes from what I calculated in the game. Nothing wrong with this. And he took so quickly, I think he thought he was getting away with this, that maybe I'd forgotten about this piece, but no, this was all part of the design. Knight takes d7, and then it's such an awkward decision here because your king can't move. You only have one move, but you don't want to play it. Your king is completely stuck, so you have to take, and then it's just no good. So I chose to take on c4 because I figured if I took this pawn, then maybe his knight defends this pawn on c4 indefinitely. e6 messed up his castling, and then just a4. Bishop d6. He defends everything, but then not everything, right? I take the pawn. And to be honest, when I played here, even though I figured he would play f6, I didn't actually think about how it could also be threatening to trade queens. And of course the evaluation drops a point. The computer always prefers just to keep things on and checkmate, but it's impossible to play like that, I find. Having this mindset of always having to be aware of when the sacrifices are incoming. I have this decisive material advantage. Let's just take the queens off, and then I never get checkmated. Queens come off. I played d4 so that I can play my bishop out. I think just as well I could have played b4, but I, for whatever reason, I guess there's a lot of control, or will be a lot of control on the square. So, you know what? I don't know if I have a great excuse for this. I think both moves are fine. Both moves make sense. And honestly, I have the leisure here to do whatever I want. I'm up in exchange. I'm up some pawns. I'm up to, what is that? 3 pawns in exchange. Takes, takes. And yeah, and here it was quite clear that if he comes here, I'd like to be able to kick him away and then maybe bring my king up. But you know, he's going to start running in. He's going to create threats. So I just took away the square first. Like, okay, your king is here. Very nice. Now I can start to threaten, bring my king here so that I don't lose this pawn. So they can play kick your king back, kick your knight back maybe, get my bishop to a good square. But he came in anyways, completely forgetting that this was a possibility. So yeah, a pretty straightforward game. So we probably gained some rating off of that, and hopefully we can play even stronger players. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you got something out of this. I think I got something out of this in terms of at least seeing that Wesley So Viswanathan Anand game. I'm going to take a look at that and see what maybe the more accurate approach to the opening was instead of knight a3, and figure out how to better maybe create that sort of, at that point it's like a ready opening, and I don't have a lot of experience there, so I'm going to use this as an excuse to kind of familiarize myself with some new positions. So I'll see you in the next game.